We're already on.
Oh, hello. Live.
Hello. Oh gosh.
Hello. Yeah, this is my shaking hand.
Don't do that, that makes me
One
sneeze.
meter. Where are you? Yes. Hello, love. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Good
Yogaground. Good morning, Sunday early morning. 8 o'clock. No, not true. 7 o'clock. Well, how?
You started drinking early for that.
My alarm was 8 o'clock. Yours?
No, I got up 15 minutes ago, and then I thought I'd just roll down here and it's all fine.
15. Okay, Anthony, what are we working on today?
Well, we're going to be doing a Hatha yoga class. The idea is working on pressure and direction, and using those two ideas of pressure and where to send the direction of that pressure to help try and create some space in your body, but also to stabilize into the various joints.
Okay, good. What do they need?
You need your mat, of course.
Yes.
And perhaps a lovely accessorized with the Yogaground towel, if you have one. You might want to have a brick. If you don't have a brick, grab a full volume of the works of William Shakespeare, and that will work. Or something along those lines. Anything that maybe you can place underneath your hands to lift the floor up. If you know you're quite tight, and you find often lunging and placing hands on the floor, then maybe using something to elevate the floor is a good idea.
How to elevate the floor?
How to elevate the floor without construction? It's quite complicated. So you can use props, you can use books, you could use other things. Be inventive.
Okay.
Part of this whole situation is that we can be inventive about things, huh?
Good morning, Lieveke. Nice you're all here, guys. I see a lot of you joining now. Good morning.
And my parents joined. They said they were going to join.
Who's joining?
My parents.
Oh, really?
I doubt they are there. If you
Hi,
are there,
Mom and
hello.
Dad. Hello, Mom and Dad. Yeah.
Right.
Even Valet, hello, great you're here, everyone. And just remember that we have this classes also on YouTube. So if you like to join later today or maybe even tomorrow, you can. Hello, Irma. Good morning. And I have to say, and I have to thank you. I want to thank you for all the donations. We get a lot of donations every day. Really, really nice. Thank you so much. Let's do this all together, right? That's why we are here.
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna?
Should we kick
rumble?
off? Let's kick off. Let's just kick off.
Let's kick off.
So we're not going to start sitting down because I don't know about anyone else out there, but I've spent quite a lot of time sitting down over this period. So I'm going to start standing up. And we're going to call this energetic standing to start off with. So come to the front aspect of your mat, so towards the front. Let your ankles hang underneath your hip sockets. Take a mild bend into your knees. And then we're using that bend into the knees there just to check out that we're aligning the thighs nicely here under the hips so that we're not going to put any unusual pressures through the knee. So making sure that we can adjust the feet accordingly so that those knees track forwards. Doesn't matter if the feet are slightly turning out, turning in, one out. Just make sure that your knees are nicely aligned and that gravity can fall through your... Your arms gravitate towards the floor, and perhaps let's close the eyes here. So feeling at this early start of our practice that we have with these idea of directions, the lower legs pressing down into the floor to give you a sense of height or of direction vertical away from ground. Your thighs are lifted, so you feel the stabilization that comes from lifting up those upper legs. The pelvis, nice and heavy, sat on top of those legs. Feeling spine climbing vertical, but with the breastbone, that chest area, feeling that it's anchoring down. So we don't get that pigeon chest moving forwards, but we have a nice softening of the chest and a growth into the back of the rib cage. The arms, feeling that the upper arm bones are pulling into the shoulder sockets. So we've got nice stabilization again into the shoulders, but the chest is nice and broad. Shoulder blades also parting on the back body, so I have nice spacious upper body. The forearms, feeling that there is space and a reach away from the shoulders. So we're opening up or decompressing into those elbows and also around the knees with that opposition in the legs. Now start to feel how you're breathing. Tune into your natural pattern of breath first of all. Just notice where geographically you're breathing. Perhaps this feeling of engagement in your body starts to stimulate a movement of the breath into a different place. So how can we just feel how the breath naturally is flowing now? And then slowly starting to step into that position of control where we bring the breathing into an elongated state. Now perhaps we are aware of Ujjayi Pranayama if we're quite a regular practitioner, but if we're quite new to practice, then don't worry about what Ujjayi Pranayama means. Just start to work with elongated, more concentrated breathing. And then feeling the lightness of your arms here, we're going to roll the thumbs out to the sides of the room. Feel how that can help open up the chest. And with your next steady breath in, carry those arms up to the sky. And as they carry up, keep the breastbone heavy. So we're not lifting everything up, we're letting the arms lift and feeling how that carries length into these muscles that wrap around the side of the ribs, around the shoulders. And we're feeling that extension, that movement, perhaps even taking a little bit of alternate movement of those shoulder blades. So we feel the side body expanding, feeling those spaces between the ribs just moving a little easier. Checking out how that works with our breathing. So how can we possibly even direct the breath into the side that we're opening? And now with our next steady exhalation, let's soften the knees, keeping those shoulders maybe drawn down the back, not pinned, but just drawn down. We're going to hinge forward from the waist. And as we come forward, nice and slowly, keeping those spinal muscles engaged, so that's helping me keep stability in the spine. I'm softening the knees as I'm coming forwards, to distribute that stretch across the back line of the body. And then the hands may find their way down to the floor. Now I'm lifting my head a little here to help my voice carry to the microphone, but for yourself, you might want to investigate relaxing your neck down. So just letting your head hang down towards the ground. Feel that softness into your knees, still that pressure of the legs, the lower leg down into the floor, the lift of the thighs into the hips. Perhaps even the feeling of directing your hips towards the back wall, freeing up space there for your spine to come forward. Now with your next steady breath in, let's push the feet down, slide the fingers up your shins, and we're working into those spinal muscles to help bring the spine back into a lengthened position with natural waves into that spine. And perhaps with your next exhalation, take that forward bend, back down towards the floor, release the spinal muscles. Now let's make sure those hands are connecting with the floor. Lean into your left foot and decompress your right leg. So I'm going to reach the right leg backwards in space. Now just floating there first of all, don't worry about tapping the toes down quite yet, we're just leaving that leg out into space, reaching with the heel perhaps, and maybe then softening that left knee a little further. Toes will then naturally find their way down into the floor, and I'm going to soften the knee. So coming into that Anjaneya, a lunging position, I'm going to press into left foot, lift up the abdominals, and we're coming up into that lunging position. Now I have my back toes tucked underneath there, I don't know if you can see that there, but you may want to untuck the toes. So depending on how that works, for your foot and for your knee in particular, just notice what that does to the sensation around your knee. Now checking in here, use your exhalations to perhaps let yourself sink a bit further forward into that stretch, opening up the front line, being careful not to carry the arms too far back, otherwise we get that compression into the spine. So keeping it coming forwards, up and out into space. Now with your next exhalation, softening in the chest, bring the hands down towards the floor. I'm going to push the hands down and then float back into a planking position. Now in that plank, keep the elbows a little softened, knees a little softened, but there is still that direction of pressure down into the floor through the lower parts of the arm. The upper arm is being drawn into the shoulders. I'm moving the heart a little forwards, lowering the knees. Take a breath in, open up the chest. And with your next exhale, chaturanga, just lowering to the floor. Take a breath in and roll the shoulders back, lift the collarbones, working into the spine. Feel those muscles engaging to lift yourself up. And with your next exhale, release down. Tucking the toes if they're not still already tucked. I'm going to press up, hugging the ribs in. Then move back, downward facing dog. Now, as this is perhaps your first down dog of the day, unless you've done any preparations, then you might want to just tread through your ankles. As you're treading through your ankles, perhaps even tread through your hands. The feeling of rocking weight from one hand to another. So no position here in a Hatha Yoga practice has to be completely static. There's always the room to be exploring that pressure, that changing of weight and pressure, to create different changes in the tension of your body. Now from here, with your next breath in, we're going to lift the heels. With the exhale, bend the knees, slightly look forwards. Now we have options. We can walk forwards, we can do little hops, and we can do one big giant hop to the front end of the mat. So make your choice, and then come forwards. Take your next breath in, push the feet down, lifting up and find that spinal work again, so muscles working here to stabilize the back. Exhale for forward bend. Now let's bend the knees. We're going to roll the shoulders back. Rather than rolling up, start hinging. So I'm going to move the spine forwards, push into the feet, come all the way up. Arms reach up overhead. Exhale, soften your knees, hinge forward again, coming all the way back down, keeping softness into your hips. Relax the neck. Breath in, push the feet down, slide fingers up the shins, hug the ribs in. Exhale, diving back down, sink the hands into the floor, lean to the right foot. Left leg becomes weightless. So I can float it out into space. Maybe I even want to move it around, try out some rotations there. And I'm keeping the weight falling through this right foot, pushing down through the lower leg, pulling up with that upper leg. Soften the right knee and let the toes come down. Drop the back knee. Anjaneya, move forwards with your weight, push down, lift up the front body, carry the arms up, keep them slightly in front, and just breathing here in your Anjaneya. So I'm sinking into that lunging position, still pushing down through the feet. I'm lifting the thighs inwards, and I'm lifting up the front body. So this is often misinterpreted here as a pulling in of the belly. Rather than pulling in, just lift it up. And by lifting up, you naturally start to thin the waist, and that stabilizes the spine without rigidizing it. Now with your next exhale, forward bend. Hands come down, hug the ribs in, step back. Breath in, move the heart forward, lower the knees perhaps. Chaturanga with exhale. Inhale for arching of spine and opening up those collarbones. Your exhale releases down, tuck the toes. Breath in, come on up. And your exhale, transition back, downward facing dog. Again, feel free to take exchanges of pressure, or maybe even allowing yourself to explore a bit more stillness. But feel what feels right for you in your practice. Find the balance with activity versus stillness, with that strong inhalation against a softer exhalation. Lifting your heels, and take your next exhale, looking forwards. Options again, stepping, jumping, walking forwards. Take your breath in, push the feet into the floor, move the ribs forwards. Exhale, dive down. Soften your knees, roll shoulders back, hinging from the waist. Come all the way up. Breath in, arms come up overhead. I'm lengthening out through the waist. I'm pushing down through legs. Exhale, forward bend, moving with a little more fluidity. Breath in, push feet down, slide ribs forward. Exhale, diving down. Step it back with your right foot, then follow that with your left. Breath in, hug ribs in, but open up the chest. Exhale, chaturanga. Option, of course, to lower knees. Inhalation for an arching, and exhalation, diving back down, tucking toes. Breath in, hugging ribs in, and your exhale pushes you back. Take a nice slow breath in. Find that push down through the arms, hugging in the shoulders. Your exhale, let the ankles release. Take a breath in, lift your heels. Your exhale bends the knees, looking forwards. Options again, stepping, jumping, flying forwards. Breath in, slide fingers up the shins, move the heart forward. Exhale, dive. Bend your knees, roll shoulders back, and hinge. Breath in, arms come up overhead. Open up the hip flexors. Exhale, soften knees, forward bend. Breath in, push feet down, slide the ribs forward. Exhale, forward bend. Lean into that right foot, step your left back, follow it with right. Breath in, moves the heart forward. Your exhale, chaturanga. Inhale as we arch the spine, feel that chest opening. Exhale, diving down, tuck your toes. Breath in, hug the ribs in, find the use of your shoulders and chest. Exhale, come back, down dog. Check in with breathing. Check in with that balance of work versus softness. Take your next breath in, we're going to lift those heels. Your exhale bends the knees, look slightly forward towards those fingertips. Options, stepping, jumping, walking forwards. Take a breath in, slide fingers up the shins, hugging the ribs in. And your exhale dives you back down. Now bend your knees, this time coming up to Utkatasana. So I'm going to sink down and I'm really finding a squat into the legs. So here finding a mild arch into the lower part of the back. I'm hugging the chest slightly inwards. I'm wrapping those shoulders. And the directions here, I'm pushing down through lower legs, upper legs pulling in, chest dropping down, but back of ribs lifting. I'm still finding here those shoulders drawing in, but I'm wrapping and opening up the thumbs. So I've got a balance of energy. I feel quite bouncy, springy here in this position. Then from here, come all the way up to standing arms up overhead. Exhale, arms come down. Lean into your left foot. Now we're going to lift up the right leg, so the right knee is floating. I'm going to slowly soften into that left knee, reach back with the right leg. So I'm floating here through a balance. Don't worry if you're wobbling. I'm wobbling a little here in my knee, but I'm finding that stabilization. I'm going to soften through the left leg, drop the toe down. Keeping the toe tucked underneath, breath in, arms come up slightly in front. Just feel that position here. So we could jump from this position if we had to. Then I'm going to, from here, slowly lift that right shoulder up and back, and I'm opening up into Virabhadrasana 2, my warrior 2 position. Arms are coming out into space. Now here again, I'm hugging the shoulders in, so I'm not overstretching, overreaching. I'm pulling them in, and I'm keeping the forearms nice and spacious, hand bones spread. The legs here, I'm sinking forwards into that left leg, but I'm thinking almost of a scissoring energy through those legs. So I'm pulling the two legs towards each other, not necessarily going into a massive stretch. I'm pulling up and in, but then sinking forwards. That resistance is what we have there for that stabilization in the hips. Now from here, I'm going to reverse this warrior. Left palm opens up, climb up with the ribs. Don't worry about the position, just think about that movement into the left side. I'm creating space in between the ribs and between the ribs and the pelvis. Now I'm going to continue that movement forward, still scissoring legs, but start to come into Parasvakonasana. Left forearm onto thigh. I'm pushing into thigh. I'm hugging thigh into hip. And with that little bit of push and drag in, I feel this massive amount of energy here around the center part of the body. I can fan open the right ribs, and I can reach the right fingers. Check in with your breath. Check in here with how your neck feels. So tendencies here are to look up to the sky. Now that's perfectly fine as an option, but notice what that does in terms of tension for the neck. How does that feel today? Some people may benefit from letting the neck completely relax. So just feel what your body says yes to. What your body says, I'd rather not to. So I'm breathing into my Parasvakonasana, and I'm going to slowly soften into that left knee a little bit more. I'm going to push down through the left leg to lift the weight away from this left arm. I'm going to spiral the body towards the floor, lifting the back heel and slowly lower that right hand down. Now this is maybe where you'd like to use a brick or your Shakespeare volume to lift your hand up a little bit. I'm hugging the ribs in. It could be one of those Harry Potter books that's really big and thick. Now I'm hugging in the ribs and I'm going to spiral the body up to the sky. Now here I'm pulling in this shoulder, so I'm stabilizing the joint. I'm not over pushing or over stretching. I'm pulling it in, so I've got some stability in the shoulder girdle. And I'm lifting that left arm up and out into space. I'm also thinking of that same scissor action. So I'm pulling left thigh back and think of pushing the right thigh into the hip and slightly forward. So that scissoring helps me keep or parallel line with the legs. Now the next exhalation, I'm going to soften the right knee. It's going to find the floor. And I'm pivoting on this knee. I'm going to move it out, stepping into side plank. So I'm going to step that left foot back, perhaps slightly more in front of the body. I'm hugging in the ribs. and I'm coming into that side plank. So this is an option for some people here. Slightly more modified version, less strenuous onto that wrist. But I may find that if I'm feeling stronger, I may try lifting the knee and just closing the knees together. That already is going to improve the strength here in that right side. I may then switch the legs and exchange that over and just find fun there balancing on the side. There's lots of variants you might want to try out with this leg. Feel free to investigate. Do whatever fancy positions you prefer. Now take your next breath in. Left arm comes forward and reaching out through that line. I'm going to move back and find my way into downward facing dog. You can do a little slinky walk there if you like. If you're feeling particularly fancy. Slinky walk. Then I'm thinking of wrapping those shoulders, opening up the chest, not overstretching here. So careful of this option here, pinches the shoulders. I'm keeping it a bit more closed. Softening into those hips and finding a length to the spine. Notice my knees are bending. So for some people with tight hamstrings, I'm in that group. I'm not going to lock through the legs because that's going to curve my spine. So I'm going to soften the knees and allow that length into the back. Take your next breath in. I'm going to lift those heels. Exhale, bend your knees. You have your options again. Perhaps jumping, floating, maybe even passing through handstand if you're feeling brave. Take your next breath in, slide fingers up shins. Search for length to the spine. Exhale, dive back down. Soften your neck. Bend the knees. Now we're coming up to Utkatasana again. Coming up, find that nice chair position. I'm sitting down. Now I'm balancing here the movement of the outer thigh forwards, inner thigh backwards. For some people that will make more sense, for some it's the other. So work out where your knees are going and then balance the force, so that your knees are going out over your toes or out towards the wall. Now from here, push through those feet, climb up tall, open up the hip flexors, exhale, let the arms come down. Take a moment, stand in Tadasana, breathing. Close your eyes, why not? Take a moment, step inside, feel the balance. Feel how gravity falls through your structure. Lean into your right foot. Your left leg is going to become lighter. So as I lift up into this balance, avoid that temptation of dropping into balance. I'm going to lift up into balance, finding that stability by that direction of pressure going down, the abdominals lifting up, and that will naturally draw them to the spine. Soften the right knee and hinge forward in the waist. It's chair position, but just with the leg reaching backwards. I'm finding that balance. Don't worry if there's wobbles. Don't worry if you even need to put the toe down earlier. Perfectly fine. I'm going to drop the toe down, carry the arms up. Breathe steady here. I'm opening up the hip flexors, the psoas muscle and various other ones running across the hip here. So I'm opening up this area, sinking into that lunge. Then I'm going to spiral that left shoulder up and sideways, opening the chest. So I'm coming into that warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2 position. Now I'm checking in here with this right knee and making sure that the knee is coming forwards. I'm not worrying here about the position of the toes, as long as the knee is coming forwards. I'm drawing the hip back and I'm opening up the chest. Now I'm not worrying if the chest isn't completely square to the side wall. Just go to where your body feels right. Balancing again with that scissoring energy, pulling the legs towards each other, while still opening the position. And now I'm going to reverse the warrior. Rotate the right palm, lift up and sideways bending into the spine. So rather than a back bend, think of this as a sideways bend. I'm opening up space between the ribs and pelvis. I'm opening up around the shoulder joint. And then I'm going to move into that Parsvakonasana. So I'm lifting up, pushing down, finding space. So it's quite an energetic transition here. Forearm finding the thigh. The hip goes into the socket whilst I push down through the arm. And that zipping of energy is like a fountain coming up through the center of the body, up through the left ribs. So I'm finding lots of strength, lots of energy within this position. I'm fanning open those left ribs. And I'm finding a wonderful sensation here in Parsvakonasana. I'm checking in with the neck, not overcooking, but finding A nice comfortable position for the neck here in tension. Those hand bones still spreading here. Now with our next steady breath in, I'm going to push down through that right foot, lift weight away from the right arm. I'm going to start to spiral the body towards the ground. As I spiral down, the back foot can naturally lift up. I'm getting that scissoring action again, and I'm bringing the left hand down into the floor for spinal twist. Now I may wish to soften the knee, maybe even put the knee down if that feels right for you, but find that comfortable spinal twist. You may want to even think about this as already your side plank. So I'm pushing down through that left forearm, but lifting up and in with that left upper arm. So I'm creating space around the elbow joint. I'm checking in with my breath here. I've got that scissor action still in the legs. So I don't know if you can quite see that there, but when I let go of the scissor action, I'm going to allow myself to come forwards like this. Instead, I'm going to zip the legs together, and I find it's got a much more energetic use of those inner thighs, of my quadriceps, and of that back hamstring and buttock. I'm going to lower down the left knee. Pivot on the knee for side plank. So I'm going to step back here with that right foot into my side plank position. I'm pushing down through that left shin, hugging in the left ribs, fanning open the right. Dance with your fingertips. Breastbone nice and soft here, so I'm not overstretching the chest. Temptation here is to really go for this. Perfectly fine, maybe a chest opening class. But today, just finding that stability that comes from less opening of chest, more sideways bend, hugging in of those ribs.
Show us those dancing fingers.
Dancing fingers? Or maybe even jellyfish. That's a lovely way of just manipulating the joints through the hands. And you'll notice there, you can see actually on my fingers, my index finger is a little bit rubbish. It doesn't have smooth action, it goes poink. So it just shows you I've got some tension there in the wrist that's kind of restricting that fluid movement. So maybe here in the legs you want to join the legs, maybe you want to exchange and go into that side plank position. Challenge here of course is to try and speak whilst in a side plank. It's not easy. This is the hardest job I've ever had to do. And then I'm thinking here about right arm coming forwards, extending that line of energy. So I've got a stretch now running down the right side. As I then step, transition, nice and easy. Slinky hips again. Find your downward facing dog. Check in here on your breathing. Check in on the sensation around your shoulder girdle, your neck. Does it feel better to pin the nose in? Or let the nose come out a little bit? So just feel what feels right for your neck and shoulders. Take your next breath in, lift your heels. Curve the spine. So notice here, in my spine, I'm trying to push the vertebra through the skin. Those spinal processes, the bony bits on the back of the spine, I'm trying to demonstrate them through my skin, through my t-shirt. Not sure if it's completely visible. Then I'm going to lower the knees. Direction here is pubic bone backwards. And I'm sinking back, passing through a child's pose. So I'm not going to stay there. We've not worked hard enough yet for child's pose. So I'm going to curve the spine, hug the ribs in, roll up, feel that push through the vertebrae again, and then drop pubic bone down to sit up tall. Lean off to one side and swing the legs around. A Paschimottanasana, forward bend. I'm drawing the toes back. Now for those who are going to find that their knees will lift, doesn't matter. Perfectly fine. What that's probably telling us is that the calves are tight. So the calves come and attach here above the knee joint. So when I'm going to pull, if they pull and lift the knee, it tells me they're a bit tight. Doesn't matter, it just helps you diagnose. So I'm going to draw the toes back, lift the arms up. Perfectly fine here as well. Move the soft bits of your bottom out of the way, and maybe sit on Shakespeare at this point, if you'd prefer. That's not a very good cue. So I'm going to think of drawing the hips backwards, and as I draw the hips back, this is the direction here of the thighs, inwards and backwards. Then the spine comes out into space, not coming forwards. I'm not thinking of smacking my forehead on my shins. I'm climbing out into space. I'm finding that length into the back body. And you can see here, I'm no amazing yogi with super flexible hamstrings and spine. I'm simply exploring the tension in the back line of my body. I'm pushing the fingers into the floor, lifting out from the waist. So it's not about getting to the depth of this position. It's about exploring, where is the tension now? How does the body change under gentle, elongated stress? And how does my breathing get affected by this? Can I maintain soft and steady breath? So I'm going to soften the neck again here. Notice I'm just noticing my nose coming forwards. So just check in there. Notice those little habits that we have. I'm trying to come forwards here with my nose lifting. That's not going to really work. So I'm going to relax the neck and just feel that the relaxation perhaps of the neck gives me more space. I'm going to push down the legs into the floor and start to climb my way out from that Paschimottanasana. Arms lifting up. Now from here, rotate the thumbs forward. So I'm getting an internal rotation of the shoulders. So you see that internal. This will be external, great for opening the shoulders on the back. I'm going to open up the chest by moving that way. Arms come around the back. So now look at my lovely open chest. I'm going to let the hands find the floor. I'm going to lean back, bend the knees. Place the feet down, pushing down and lifting up into this inverted plank position. Now, this is an opportunity where you have to really play with your ego. Let your belly expand out into space. Don't be ashamed of your Buddha bellies. I'm lifting up and opening out into space. I'm feeling that push down. I'm decompressing in the shoulders and opening the chest. I'm pushing down. Now I'm going to soften the chest a little bit more. Now let's see if we can keep the bum away from the ground. And you can get really down low there, Ferdy, so then people are really impressed by how strong I am at being able to keep my bottom off the floor. Maybe even test out lifting your feet. And then we sink. Come down. Lean back, let's cross the legs, come forward. Come onto your front surface, lengthen out those arms a bit further forward, and roll onto your front. So just strengthening into the spine a little bit here. Maybe take a little wobble. Jelly bottoms released. Lovely blancmange posteriors. Now I'm going to lengthen the toes back, arms come a bit wider. Draw the collarbones up and sideways, not backwards, up and sideways. I'm finding space in the chest. Directional pressure down through pelvis. Chest moves forwards rather than up. It looks like it's up, but it's going forwards. I'm then going to lengthen the legs backwards. And maybe, if I'm feeling that I'm not over tight in the shoulders, also going to lift the arms. I'm breathing, I'm floating, I'm maybe moving a little bit. I'm not locking, I'm not concreting. So we've got the dancing fingers again there, got the dancing toes. And then I'm slowly going to lower. Hands come under shoulders, hug the ribs in. Move back, child's pose-ish for a moment. So we're going to explore dolphin. I'm going to place those forearms down. Nice parallel forearms. Now maybe if you're quite tired in the shoulders, if you're not used to doing a lot of arm balancing, perfectly fine, go with the interlace. You may find that will help you out a little bit. For those with a slight different variation here, we can even explore this outwards rotation. And there you might want to put Shakespeare again in this gap and just gently squash Shakespeare between your forearms. So I'm going to curve the spine. I'm going to relax the neck. I'm actually going to go for this variant. I'm hugging in the chest. So you see this nice curvature that I have in the upper part of the spine. We want to have that curvature. That's helping me access a wrap of the shoulders. I'm relaxing the neck. Then lift the bum. Now for some people this may be the option for you today, maybe the extreme version, so I'm just going to stay here and breathe. It may be that you want to explore moving one foot closer to the center line and float the leg into the sky. It may be an option of floating. So you might want to play around with that, trying your best to keep your neck relaxed, just breathing steady in that position. So feel free to go for that Pinchamayurasana option, maybe just alternating legs, maybe even moving one foot more around the side and taking circles. That's also a lovely way of training into your forearm standing. But take whatever option works best for you and breathe steady. Always making sure here that that shoulder is wrapping and that we have that movement here, that wrap of the shoulders to create space in the upper part of the spine. Check in that your breathing is moving steady. We don't want to hold the breath. The minute we start stopping breathing, we trigger those flight and fight response. So you get that trigger of, oh, panic. So instead keep it nice and soft, nice and calm, full of feeling. Now from your dolphin, when you feel like you've exhausted yourself from that, sit yourself back, let your arms come backwards, and we take that child's pose. And we're just breathing here, letting those shoulder blades melt off the back. We have that internal rotation here as those elbows sink into the floor. And within a child's pose, we get that opportunity here to study the tension of the lower body. Perhaps we feel a tightness in the front of the ankle. That probably tells us that this tibialis anterior, or the muscles here on the front, are quite tight. You may find that the knees feel quite compressed or pulled. That's probably telling us that the quads are quite tight, or around this area. So thinking about just dragging those thighs up into the hips can give relief into those knees. Perhaps we feel it more around the pelvis and the buttocks, just telling us that those muscles are probably a little bit tight. How can we perhaps think of lifting the skin on the back body? So that feeling here of dragging the skin towards the back of the neck. And then from here, I'm pushing the shins down. So press those shins into the floor, lift the ribs in. Try and avoid using the arms too much here as we roll up to sit up onto your sitting bones. And again, just checking in here, chest soft, pubic bone dropping down, gentle lift of the sacrum on the back of your pelvis there. So gentle lift, so we have natural arch to the lower back. Leaning off to one side. Let's swing the legs out to the front. Shuffle your pelvis to the center of your mat. Reaching the arms out. Now here I'm thinking about direction here, forearms moving forwards, upper arms in, spine rounding. And I have a lift through the skin on the back. Now as I'm coming down, check in here that we don't get stuck, that we don't concrete, that we're trying to keep certain elements of twisting, maybe movements of the ankles, the toes, and we're trying to resist that movement. Now if the feet even come away from the floor, perfectly fine. In fact, use this even as an option. You can come down through that boat position, but gliding your way down, I'm focusing in here to find stability in those deep core muscles until gradually, with that little bit of shuddering that we start to find in the body, we can come down to rest. Back of the neck is long. Draw the heels to your bottom. Bridge position. Let your palms come down and roll the thumbs out. Spacious collarbones. Now let's see if we can even keep the arms about 1 centimetre away from the floor. It's going to help us tune into the spine a bit more. We're going to push through the feet, knees go forwards. I'm lifting up into that bridge position. Now notice if your nose flies backwards. Just see if you can keep it relaxed. It doesn't mean imprint the neck down. We want a natural arch there. So just feel we're lifting up onto the shoulders as we're training in a way with bridge towards shoulder stand. And shoulder stand is a standing of the shoulders rather than a neck stand. So I'm pressing those shoulders down. I'm keeping the ribs quite drawn in, but I'm thinking of the lovely word that's often used in the forest yoga line is the telescoping of the ribs. So that telescoping of the ribs here, trying to expand space between the ribs. And I'm keeping the back of the legs here engaged, buttocks engaged, spinal muscles working quite gently. And then I'm going to start rolling down. I'm feeling the curvature in the middle part of spine. The heart presses down into the floor. I keep the belly button lifting upwards, so up towards the back of the ribs. And gently finding my way down. Draw the knees to your chest. Take a rock. And that rock is to, one, mobilize the back, mobilize the hips here, so I'm taking those little alternate circles. But it's also to feel that connection to the floor. It's to try and melt the spinal muscles into the floor so you can let your spine relax a little easier. Arms come out. We're going to take a spinal twist, quite brief spinal twist. But swing the legs a little more up to the left armpit, let's say here. So I'm going to swing, get a bit of movement to that. Then I can maybe extend the legs. And I'm reaching out, maybe taking a hold of the ankle, the foot. But feel how this feels for your spine here in spinal twist. You may find a pulling into this right side of the body. How does it feel for the direction to send your sitting bone away from the ribs? And you may find a very deep sensation of aching perhaps into this area here, a muscle called curatus lumborum, deep down for a sideways flexion of the spine. So lateral flexion often gets quite tight in there. So just notice how that feels. And then I'm going to maybe start softening the spine, draw that right knee towards the chest, The right hand here comes over, and I'm going to use that arm along with a bit of push there to help bring me over. Changing sides, swinging across to the right. This arm may come up, don't worry about that. Just take a hold of the arm and then gently let it sink. So the spinal twist here is that we're surrendering to gravity. We're utilizing gravity as a friend here to help find that spinal twist. I'm moving the hip away, so the sitting bone away from the rib cage, and finding that openness here into these muscles here, deep muscles in there, quadratus lumborum, finding a bit of space there. And then I'm going to soften into chest. Draw the knee to the chest, that's the left knee. Left arm comes over. Gentle expansion, like you're yawning, just to help bring you onto your back. Let the feet find the floor. Maybe adjust your clothing if you're on camera. Give yourself a wiggle. Roll the thumbs out. And start this movement of surrendering to your relaxation. We're going to let the legs slide forwards in space. Flex the toes back as strong as you can. You'll feel that pulls the body forwards. So I'm flexing the feet, engaging the quads, really switching them on, working quite strong, and relax. Flex the fingers back. Push the heels away like Spider-Man firing webs out to the corners of the room, and relax. Neck reaches back. Think of the rib cage drawing away from the neck and just extending the neck. Maybe feels like you clench the jaw a little bit, and relax. Let your eyes close. Feel your connection to the ground, particularly with those exhalations. With your inhalation, perhaps feel for that greater expansion into space. So we feel those directional qualities here of breathing. Your breath in creates the extension out from that space behind your belly button, reaching out through all of the limbs of the body. Your exhalation draws everything back to the center. And just remaining here, just feeling. Shavasana is a great opportunity for the body to accept the teachings that we place into it through our physical practice. It gives our mind the opportunity to distance itself from that duty of constant maintenance of the body, and instead we can allow this to be a space for the mind to just focus in on the movement of breath. Now feel free if you'd like. We're already on. Join us, gradually start to wiggle your fingers, to wiggle your toes, just reawakening the body into movement, rolling those ankles and wrists and feeling those circular movements, thinking about the muscles that are involved there in making those movements, the head gently rocking from side to side. And take a nice big deep breath in. Extend out to every direction possible. And your exhale rolls you onto, let's say, the right hand side. And then find your way up to a comfortable seated position. Feel free here, you might want to lift yourself up onto Shakespeare or Harry Potter the Half-Blood Prince. And then just bring your hands together in front of your heart. Take a nice deep breath in all together. And with your exhalation, finding that balance, softness versus energy, work versus relaxation, and thanking yourselves for your practice this morning. Thank you all very much. Namaste. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Maybe you have to promote your Align series as well.
Yeah, I mean, the dates are at the moment escaping me because they're moving around a little bit, but we still have two more sessions of the series coming up. The Align series is a workshop where we look into the functional anatomy of the body, we look at the asana practice, and we start to find ways to make the asana practice perhaps a little more accessible for your own body, your own limitations in your body, and perhaps even give you options and methodologies that help you gradually improve the state of your body, so you might be able to move towards those more advanced postures if you'd like them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a lot of people now typing as well. So a little hello from both of us.
Hello.
Not too close.
And maybe I can say here, Ferdy, but as a
Not too
teacher,
close.
sorry, distance.
Oh yeah, I just wear this sweater.
Oh,
Did you
you've
see
got
it?
branding. I don't have branding. I just have colour. But yeah, so one thing that I think is nice is, I don't know for all the other teachers that are out there that are doing these live streaming classes, after the class, if you can send your pictures of you doing your practice, of your setup, it's actually really meaningful for us, because right now all I can see is myself staring back at me and Ferdy here in the corner. So
Inspired?
It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
So it's, oh, I touched you again. So yeah, any bits of feedback, information is really greatly received, and we really love seeing that. So keep it coming.
Thank you all. Have a lovely Sunday.
Yeah.
Stay home.
It is sunny, so if you've got a garden.
Yeah, garden is good, balcony is good. Perfect. Thank you again, and we see you tomorrow, early morning actually. Tomorrow morning at 7:30 with Maggie on the mat, and we see you all. Bye then. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, everyone.